Thank you for listening to our daily Bible reading. The lesson today is There I Will Meet with Thee. In our last reading, we are in the midst, in the book of Exodus, the 24th through the 27th chapter, of God confirming the covenant and then telling them about the building of the various aspects of the tabernacle and the things that would go in it. In chapter 25, you find an interesting passage as he's talking about the building of the Ark of the Covenant. He says in verse 17, Thou shalt make a mercy seat of pure gold. You go on down in verse 21, he says, Thou shalt put the mercy seat above upon the ark, and in the ark thou shalt put the testimony that I shall give thee. And there I will meet with thee and commune with thee from above the mercy seat between the two cherubims which are upon the ark of the testimony of all the things which I give thee in commandment unto the children of Israel. One thing is, of course, that he's saying the things that are given here, this old covenant through Moses, is for the children of Israel. Never meant for us, never meant for all mankind. So sometimes people look at that, and whenever we teach in Colossians, the second chapter, in verse 14 and 15, that the law that given through Moses was nailed to the cross, taken out of the way, blotted out, they say, well, then we don't have any connection with God. What they fail to realize is this was all foreshadowing Jesus coming upon us. You look and you go over to the New Covenant, and you find an interesting passage as you look in the book of Romans in the third chapter in verse 25. And here, in talking about the sinfulness of man and then the need for redemption, he says in verse 23, he says, All have come sinned and come short of the glory of God, being justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus. There is a salvation. But notice the next verse. He says, Whom God has sent forth to be a propitiation through faith in his blood to declare his righteousness for the remission of sins that are passed through the forbearance of God. Now, an interesting word there is that word propitiation. Now, remember back in the book of Exodus, it said there on the mercy seat, that's where I will commune with you. Here, he says, Jesus is that propitiation. That word propitiation, if you go over to the book of Hebrews, the 9th chapter and verse 5, it's translated as mercy seat. You see, God is looking and to those individuals who knew of that old covenant and such. Here is Jesus. In the book of Matthew, the 17th chapter and verse 5, remember the transfiguration. Peter and James and John were there with Jesus, and Moses and Elijah appeared unto them, and they wanted to build something to each one of them. But the voice from heaven came down and speaking of Jesus. He said, This is beloved, my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. What do we find? Jesus is that place where God communes to us. Jesus came forth to do the Father's will. He did those things which were from above. He taught those things of the Father. Matthew 7:21 and following, you will find that way of salvation if we obey his Father which is in heaven. All of these things point out that, yes, under the old covenant, there was that communing of God with Israel through the mercy seat. Today, our mercy seat, that one set forth propitiation for us, is Jesus Christ. So we go to him, our mediator, 1 Timothy 2 and verse 5, and we realize that what he said is true. He is the way, the truth, the life. He is that mercy seat, the communing that we're having with the Father. What a glorious thing it is to know that God in the old covenant prepared those things, but pointing to the Son who would come. So whenever you look at that passage, realize today, we don't need the old, we have the new, that better way through Jesus Christ that will take us into not just the physical Canaan that Israel looked to, but that rest that remained, that heavenly home. Thank you for listening. Remember, as you look to the Word and it points to Jesus Christ, God says, There, I will commune with you. Have a great day. Thank you again for joining us in this Bible study. We remind you, if you'd like to follow along in our daily Bible reading, the link below in the description of this video will give you the PDF so you can read right along with us. If you have any other questions or if you'd like information on a Bible study, contact us with the information provided on the screen before you.